growing your identity in any field, I think is challenging. I mean, I think imposter syndrome is not just for chemists or scientists, but
definitely.
I think things that have helped me with imposter syndrome are to say it out loud, like to find other people who also have it and talk about what it kind of consists of and why we think those things, right? And like some of the time when you're talking to people about it, you're like, well, that just sounds ridiculous coming out of my mouth, right? Like, I know I'm good at that. Why am I giving myself such a hard time?
Welcome to Navigating Nano Podcast, where we explore the multidisciplinary world of nanotechnology with distinguished professors and researchers. Join us as we sit down and talk about their cutting-edge research, career paths, and expert opinions on the expanding world of nanotechnology. This week, we welcome Dr. Andrea Goforth, a distinguished professor in the Department of Chemistry at Portland State University. She sits down with us, the Materials Research Society at the Joint School of Nanoscience and Nanoengineering in Greensboro, to talk about the importance of bismuth as a material for biomedical imaging applications, tips on how to tackle imposter syndrome, and motherhood. Join us as we navigate nano.
Great. Thank you so much. Welcome all. My name is Faith Zablon. I'm a PhD student in nanoengineering, synthetic biology. And this afternoon we have Dr. Andrea Goforth. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm pronouncing it the right way.
That is very good.
Yeah, she is an associate professor in Portland State University. Let's speak up. Okay. She is a professor at the Portland State University, and we had an interesting session with you in the morning, and several people asked you questions, and this platform is for you to share with us your professional journey, how it has been. Have you had a chance of working in industry, and can you do a comparison of the two? So this is an open space to speak. The student talks to you, and we just try to make it really interesting, but at the same time, we want to bring out a journey that can motivate us and inspire us, because eventually we would like to end up like you, or even, go to other places to work.
Yes.
So, I would like to, get to know more about you. What has it been? How has been your career and this far?
Okay. Well, I think I went to undergraduate thinking I would study chemistry because I would go to medical school. And maybe that's common because I teach a lot of general chemistry students that want to go to medical school. I really didn't know there were careers at all in chemistry when I was an 18-year-old undergraduate. I thought, you studied chemistry, you went to medical school. But I got the sense in the early first years of college that I really preferred studying chemistry on the molecule level of detail.
Yeah.
Over biology, on the organismal level of detail. I was really kind of interested in how molecules bond and stick together and make intermolecular forces. And I guess in college, in high school, I hated chemistry. In college, really kind of opened up my mind to that world. And I began to sort of think about how everything worked on the atomic and molecular level, from shampoo to, how you make a window, waterproof or turn colors or whatever. And so I guess I stuck with a chemistry major. A really good professor, Greg Grant, got me interested in research. Colors and crystals drew me to research in organic chemistry. And then I guess at some point along the way I learned there were lots of careers in chemistry, like fine chemicals, biopharmaceuticals, geochemistry, just lots of places that people care about what molecules do.
Yeah.
gasoline refinement, cosmetics, etc. Like, everything is chemistry.
Yeah.
And also, I'm like phobic of blood, so I decided somewhere in college I did not want to go to medical school, and that I could go to graduate school instead. And I think that was a little bit of a naive decision. Like, I want to study more chemistry. I don't know what I want to do with it yet, right?
And how old were you then when you were making that move?
22.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's about right.
Yeah.
22. So at this point, I'd figured out there were careers in chemistry, but maybe I needed a PhD in order to not do technical or repetitive things. So definitely was interested in organic chemistry. Colors and crystals really drew me to that. And that's how I got into solid state chemistry in graduate school. Is this going down the right road?
Yeah, you're on the right track.
How I ended up a professor instead of like working
exactly.
in... I was reading you asked if I had ever worked in industry. Yeah. I've not ever worked in industry. Or really been outside of the academic environment. Like, I went from graduate school... I went undergrad straight to grad school straight to a postdoc, and a postdoc straight to a faculty position. So I don't think I have a lot of real practical experience in terms of advising students what it's like to work in the industry. World, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But you see, like, everybody has a journey, right? That's your journey, and
my journey is probably like succinctly stated in saying I never wanted to leave college. Like, ever.
Oh, you loved it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's an environment where you can change your mind, right? Like, okay, like, I want to do nanochemistry instead of solid state chemistry. Or, okay, I'm tired of biological applications of nanochemistry. I can now turn my attention to, like, making optoelectronic devices or something. So, in essence, you have a lot of freedom in terms of your project choices and direction that I don't perceive you have as much in industry. But and I like that flexibility, and I like training students more so than most things, I guess.
When did the flexibility come? Because we have PhDs, and I think we don't have that flexibility.
I don't think you do either. I don't think I really do. I just convince myself I do. Because there's not one thing anybody tells me to work on. I think a lot of it is like self-motivation and self-determination to solve a problem.
Yeah.
What's your question? Does it get easier? Like,
well,
when did it become flexible?
Yeah. When did you feel like it?
I felt like it was always flexible being a professor. But when I was before tenure, I felt like maybe the flexibility was enough to hang myself and get in trouble, right? Like, nobody was going to tell me, that's a bad idea, don't do that, right? But I felt that all along the way of being an assistant professor on to this day. Like, as long as I do my job and can train students, get money for my projects, I can change the project direction.
Oh, well, you talk about flexibility in terms of you can change the topic. Is it that easy to, like, change a topic of research and get funding for it? Because I think there is always something there. Like, get the topic, look for the money, employ students to do this work for you. How is that?
I think it's more like a pivot than like a big change, right? Like, if you think about what skill set you have, like I'm a synthetic inorganic chemist. I do a lot of spectroscopy and microscopy. That part doesn't change because that's where my skills are, right? But where I apply that skill set to could be problem A now and problem B later. So it's kind of a recognition of, like, where are your skills? and where are those skills needed right now?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best match for keeping your research current, but not necessarily bending yourself to a new research direction, but a pivot to a new place where your research skills are valuable.
Yeah. And I think I like the fact that you're looking at nanoparticle synthesis. I don't do that. But I have an interest of using nanoparticles, and my work is in cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Not in imaging, but, as a therapeutic kind of delivery target. And my question has always been, these nanoparticles being extremely toxic, how do you... I saw that you're using bismuth.
Mm-hmm.
Why bismuth?
Bismuth is fairly biologically well tolerated. Pepto-Bismol is like bismuth subsalicylate. You can drink quite a bit of that, like milligrams per kilogram body weight, and that's one mode of ingestion, right? Oral administration is different from like vascular and others injection.
Okay.
So it's kind of known that bismuth 3 plus is well biologically tolerated. It's also pretty well known that in the stomach acid bismuth subsalicylate gets reduced to elemental bismuth. So I had the sensation that of the heavy elements, that would be a likely biocompatible choice.
Okay.
But you always have to test that assumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm not a toxicity person or a pharmacology person. That's where I would really need to work with somebody else's skill set.
Okay.
To, feedback, is it toxic?
So somebody does that for you.
Yes.
That's like
synthesis, like chemical characterization, spectroscopy, microscopy, that's my toolbox. Anything living is not. Like cells, I can't culture cells. You have to have special, against to do animal work of any type, and I'm not, licensed to do that. So, again, I think it's like, again, that's not a change, right? Like I have my skill set, but I look for somebody else who can test that question for me.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
So I don't want to ask all the questions. I would like to invite my wonderful audience if you have any questions. Yes, Kyle.
Yeah, actually, I missed one thing in your slide when you present there. So I was very interested on nanoparticles processing. So you said about non-aqueous mechanism. That's what I missed actually. Can you say again the procedure, how you prepare the nanoparticles through non-aqueous system? That's actually really interesting.
So, really for like homogeneous products, you really need a homogeneous starting material. Bismuth, a lot of the bismuth salts really don't dissolve well in water unless it's pretty acidic. So I think, I'm trying to remember, this was like several years ago. The precursor bismuth nitrate in water was partially soluble, not fully soluble. So it would undergo reduction and then more would dissolve. Reduction, more would dissolve. And so then you get like nuclei at different times that are growing at different times, and they're pretty polydispersed. So it made bismuth aqueous nanoparticles, but they were not very well shape controlled, and they were not very stable. Like they dissolved pretty rapidly. So the non-aqueous synthesis, the big advantage of that polyol solvent is that it was very able to dissolve the bismuth 3 plus salt, fully able to dissolve it. And so you know what concentration of precursor you have at the beginning, and you can sort of predict what the size might be at the end. Yeah.
So I was surprised that inorganic oxide is really dissolved in water, but it would be very difficult to dissolve in organic solvent, right? So you use organic solvent instead of aqueous solvent. So how that happens? So
Oh, well, not all salts are soluble in water, right? Like, I got to teach solubility product constant in general chemistry, and there's some rules about how soluble things are based on charge and size. Bismuth 3+ is amphoteric. It just does not, will make bismuth oxide. You can make bismuth oxide pretty easily from a bismuth salt dissolved in water.
Yeah.
But we need to dissolve bismuth 3+ to reduce to the nanoparticle. So we were trying to avoid the oxide.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that answer the question? I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yes,
But-
Kai.
So my background in chemistry, which is, as you know, a very broad field in many ways because chemistry is everything.
Everything.
Now I'm in nanoscience, which is in many ways very broad as well.
Yeah.
I could argue that biology is equally everything,
We're the central science.
So I've always kind of dealt with a little bit of imposter syndrome because it's like, well, I don't know if I can call myself a chemist because it's like I don't necessarily like
Okay.
all of inorganic,
Yeah.
all of polymer. I like certain parts.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious in your journey, was there a point where, because you were talking as an associate professor, or assistant professor, you put all this kind of pressure. Did you ever wake up one day to go, no, I know what I know. I'm a chemist and I'm a chemist who does this, this, and this. Is that how you kind of overcame that?
No. So I definitely have imposter syndrome to this day. I mean, I probably could beat you all at an imposter syndrome contest, but I never think anything I do is fascinating relative to what other people do. I don't know. We'd have to, read some psychology literature on why we give ourselves such a hard time like that. But there was never a point where I knew. I guess I do know. Since you're pinning me down and asking me, I'm a synthetic person. I like to make things and I like to measure their properties. But I have bounced around a little. Am I a nanochemist? Am I an inorganic chemist? Mm-hmm. Am I a nanocrystals chemist? Because that's different from just nanoparticles. Mm-hmm. Those are crystalline particles, right? I think what I should say is that it is important to find mentors and a professional network with similar interests to you, whatever you call that group, mm-hmm. right? And if you're not finding that, keep looking for it and get multiple groups.
Yeah.
So in the long run, I think I have decided maybe I'm a nanocrystals chemist as a sub-discipline of inorganic chemist. But that still makes me an inorganic chemist. And being an inorganic chemist still makes me a chemist. So, no, I don't know what I am, right? But I do know now which crowds I get advice that I'm best able to act on. So if I go to a biology-centric meeting, right? On targeting and drug delivery, there's a meeting called Nano drug delivery. Mm-hmm. I do not get anything out of that because they don't make stuff. They measure protein markers and blah blah blah. Exactly. And they wouldn't know how to help me, and I wouldn't know how to help them. So am I, but I'll call myself a nanocrystals chemist now because when I interact with somebody from the nanocrystals conference, I'm I feel like I resonate. Is this answering your question?
But most of the times, the nanoparticles that you make is what we use because for us to come to that point of saying this nanoparticle can be used to deliver a drug in the system, then somebody has already synthesized it.
That's right.
Like this. Yeah. And you understand those properties and you kind of transmit that information to us.
Yep.
Then we maximize on the potential of those properties that you told us about.
Yeah, it should be a feedback. We're using each other's mutual expertise.
It's like a network. like you said, like chemistry is central, but there is the chemistry, there is the biology, and kind of we meet at a point, and like we can understand each other. There is this gap, but we understand what we are all doing and how we all interplay the function that we actually do. You mentioned the imposter syndrome, and I guess
you mentioned the imposter syndrome, but I said I was good at that.
Yeah.
The imposter syndrome, I think, is something that we all struggle with. At least I have struggled with it. I still struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had all these experiences as an academician, but you're still struggling with it. How do you tackle it? Like, for us, it's real because I am an immunologist, but sometimes when I listen to people talking about, the immune system and how it impacts disease, I feel like, oh my God, I don't know that. How don't I know that? So I feel so inferior in some situations.
Well, nobody knows everything.
Yeah,
that's the thing to keep in mind. Growing your identity in any field, I think, is challenging. I mean, I think imposter syndrome is not just for chemists or scientists, but
definitely.
I think things that have helped me with imposter syndrome are to say it out loud, like to find other people who also have it. And talk about what it kind of consists of and why we think those things, right? And like some of the time when you're talking to people about it, you're like, well, that just sounds ridiculous coming out of my mouth, right? Like, I know I'm good at that. Why am I giving myself such a hard time? So your internal brain can be pretty hard on yourself, right? I think it has helped me to become more confident to know that like pretty much every chemist feels this way. Or most of us do, to admit it and talk about it. And like, I guess I was telling the lunch group before, like that's one of the hardest things I've had to learn to do is to admit what I do not know, right? Because that's part of imposter syndrome. Is like, I don't want to be seen as being ignorant or not knowing enough, right? But I think that's been my greatest holdback in my career is like being ashamed to admit that, because when you actually do go and admit, like, I don't know this thing or I have no idea how to do this thing, right? That's when you're most likely to find help and get it, right? You don't ask for it, you're not getting the help, and you're probably stalling your own progress. So I think part of it's just realizing it's a thing and it's common. Imposter syndrome is common. Finding people you think you can trust to, ask questions of a lot, trying to get less afraid to ask the questions. Because I think I spend a lot of time worrying instead of just doing it. Like put myself out there and ask. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe we overdefine the imposter syndrome because
it's been very,
like you say, we cannot know
something
everything.
We should talk about, right?
Yeah, openly, like we should just acknowledge that somehow we all have it. It's just the way that we handle it that is different. So you can ask the questions, you can speak about it, but somebody is literally silently struggling with it. And that's ignorance. When people just call you, oh, you don't know, so you're ignorant. How can you not know? And I think we face it because we are not all of us are from nano engineering, but we are here. So there's a lot that we don't know. We just know like a small pinch.
Yeah, actually, that would be hard in an environment like you're in. Like, you guys have dissimilar backgrounds.
Exactly.
Like biology, physics, engineering, chemistry, blah, blah, blah. You cannot possibly know all of that, right? Like, you may not even, your biologist maybe know a sliver of what you know about biology, right? I'm thinking of some cartoon in my head, like the amount of knowledge a PhD has mapped onto the amount of knowledge the world has. Or something. It's just ridiculously small, no matter how smart of a PhD you are, right? You can't know everything. And so, I don't know, our brain kind of tricks us into this, right? Like, well, we should know that. Maybe everybody knows that. They don't.
Yeah, and
even if you were to ask a dumb question, you're going to get an answer, right? And like, then you know.
Doesn't really matter what they think.
It's easier said than done. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Yes. Anybody else with a question? Yes, Gerald.
You know what's going to clear the imposter syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to press play on an episode of Damn Nano, and they're going to hear this distinguished professor saying that she's still suffering from imposter syndrome. They're like, oh, maybe it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But I know you mentioned, this all kind of ties into imposter syndrome too, but I know you mentioned sometimes you outsource different aspects of your project. And I think part of kind of like imposter syndrome is being like really ambitious because, you know, we want to be this person, put ourselves, because, I mean, we're all like colleagues, but we are in a sense competing with each other for like certain jobs and stuff like that. And I think one thing is, personally, the problem I have is like when to just kind of like pull the plug and like outsource something that you're trying to like outsource some project that you feel like you could make in lab for like much cheaper, or it would be more rewarding if you could explain the process in like a paper or something versus I went to this company to do this process.
I could, So I think the simple answer is like you're stalling your own self, right? Because you need to learn something that you don't have time to learn. It's an easy decision then to go somewhere else. I've seen young professors, not myself, like think they needed to do everything, especially pressure for people who are trying to build a lab, right? Mm-hmm. Like to demonstrate independence and think they have to do everything. Like waste a year on learning some skill that they could have just asked a collaborator to demonstrate for them, right? What's more time effective and gets you to better results, like more impactful results, often is to collaborate, right?
Yeah.
I think for junior professors, there's been like mysticism about like you shouldn't collaborate too much, you know, being a tenured professor, you got to show that you can build your own research program and stand on your own 2 feet. These are not mutually exclusive, right? You can have something you're expert in, but collaborate to make the impact bigger, right? So to me, you just need to show that you have developed a strong strength in something, mm-hmm. right? You have a niche, a skill that other people think is valuable. I don't think collaboration hurts. I think most of the time it helps and it moves science faster. Mm. But there, you know, especially when you're junior, there's like an ownership feeling over it. Like actually, as I was sitting there talking, preparing for this talk today, I'm like, am I spending too much time on things my collaborators did for me? And am I really nothing, mm-hmm. right? I mean, I had this thought this morning, right? Like I just made some things and all the cool stuff was done by somebody else, which is pretty classic imposter syndrome. Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
but it would have gone nowhere. If I was like, I'm going to make these, I'm going to decorate these, I'm going to do cell studies, I'm going to try to get trained to do animal studies. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would have gone nowhere. Yeah.
So like young professors feel like they have this thing to prove. Do you think that's like kind of like I guess what kind of breeds that mentality? Like why would a young professor come in and feel like, I mean, I guess it may be a dumb question because like why would anybody who's new somewhere feel like they have something to prove, right? But is there kind of like a culture at academia that kind of like always breeds that, or like is it like something that's fake or like something that's like materially real that they can see as soon as they come in? Like, why do they feel like they need to do that?
I feel like there is a cultural issue. I don't know. Can I ask you to kind of rephrase the question?
Right. So you say a lot of young professors feel like they have to like take on the way of the world in their lives.
Like, yeah.
And does it? So, like, if they take on the way of the world, right, does it, and say that, you know, they succeed, right, versus if they kind of took the other route where it's like, oh, just collaborate with something.
Yeah.
Is there more reward in that versus like the other way? And kind of why do they feel inclined to do this?
I think it's a lot of the problems in academia are like myth and mysticism. Like assuming you know what you're supposed to do to be successful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I assume I need to have a lot of money and publish in high-ranking journals and so on and so forth. You assume you want to be the best and therefore you'll succeed, right? I think it boils down to good mentoring. If you have good mentoring, that's a little better. To set real expectations and midterm progress checks for those expectations. Am I going the right direction with your question? Like getting mentoring and advice on your career path. Because I thought a lot of things were true that I have discovered afterwards were not true, right? Such as that collaboration was bad, right? Like there's rumors that you must stand on your own 2 feet, you know. But like I said, you can stand on your own 2 feet and have a skill set and collaborate and use somebody else's best skill set, right? Also, you know, there's, you know, rumors like, oh, I must have a lot of federal funding. But does your university really expect that? And does your university make your job possible for you to be able to accomplish that, right? You know, I mean, I think my general contract says something like I'm supposed to spend 40% of my time in teaching, 40 in research, and 20 in service. But, you know, I don't know where I was going with that thought. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, but is it more rewarding if a professor decides to start their own lab and independently develop themselves, or is it better if they get collaborations and, you know, enhance them to actually do the work that they want?
Yeah, it's better that you do both. I mean, you must have your own unique skill,
Yeah.
right? Like otherwise, you're not going to be able to maintain a funded lab. But I hope other people are interested in that skill you have,
Yeah.
right? Because that's why people are really funding your science, is because they're like, okay, if she discovers this, it's potentially transferable here and here and here.
Yeah, but
So you just got to have your thing you do, and if it overlaps nicely with other people's objectives, I mean, I think that makes a nice marriage, right? Yeah. But for example, I couldn't just like do the same prep over and over again and get tenure and get funding and supply my collaborators with nanomaterials to test in biology. I mean, I'd be sort of a technician. Like if I couldn't adjust and tune and measure, and I'd just be a supplier, like a chemical supplier. So it's important you have your own niche. And then hopefully your niche overlaps with other people's interests and you can make bigger impact out of your fundamental interests.
So I guess to summarize, it's kind of like self-imposed until somebody who's been around be like, hey, you don't have to do that.
Yes, it is self-imposed. Like you think you know what you're supposed to do in your job, but definitely ask, right? Like I've never worked in industry, right? But I understand job descriptions can get very specific.
Yeah.
And I think I started to say my 40-40-20 was about as non-specific as your duties can get, right? And it doesn't say, like, we expect you to have X amount of federal funding and produce 12 papers or whatever. So then you start to think, well, you know, within this nebulous framework, I need 10's not good enough. I need 12 probably. Well, 12's not good enough. I need 15. Realize when your job description is nebulous like that, it's for that reason. Like, they don't tell you what the ceiling is, because then you'll work really, really hard.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's what you meant from earlier when you said flexibility, because the expectation isn't there.
The expectation is not there. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, because but there's an expectation that the institution sets for you as a professor.
Mm-hmm.
You are a mentor, you're supposed to teach, you're supposed to do research, then there is a community or service to community that you have to do. That is an expectation.
Yep.
But it doesn't come with pressure, does it?
No, or any sort of like, do this service but don't do that, or teach this but don't do that, or that research project isn't fundable, maybe you should find something else. Like that's where the flexibility comes in.
Yeah. But then there's the pressure of doing good projects that can actually, bring money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you do help yourself if you like run ideas across other people, because like if you can't convince yourself, like I'm saying this out loud to you, like, oh, that doesn't even sound like a good idea as I'm trying to explain it to you, so maybe I'm not ready to write that proposal yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Encourage healthy collegial conversations.
Yes, Scott.
So what is your approach to the service aspect of being a professor? Because it's not something that we usually get presented on or presented to about all the time.
I would say I made some mistakes in choosing service activities early in my career. I probably still make some mistakes because I say yes to everything. Don't say yes to everything.
Good to know.
You're going to quickly run out of time. Learn a mechanism for saying no. Pick activities the best you can that gel naturally with your other interests, your research and your teaching interests. Otherwise, you can find yourself spread too thin too quickly. Yeah. My service mostly right now is in instrumental facilities, which dovetails with my research. So that's, but I'm very bad at saying yes to everything. So I'll tell you what I did, though, to try to correct that.
Yeah.
So I made a buddy, my friend Teresa, faculty member. Instead of just saying yes when we're asked, we'll call each other and run this by each other. And if she'll say well, is that good for you? How does it help you? And if I cannot answer that, I know what to do. I know to say no, right? But I think there's two things there, accountability is somebody else, and then just pausing to make the decision, right? I'm going to take the time to call Teresa so that I don't automatically say yes. Yeah.
But then it comes out it has to be a mutual kind of relationship.
No, it doesn't have to be mutual.
Yeah.
But she and I will so how does that benefit you, right?
Exactly.
And if you can't answer that question, you're maybe it doesn't benefit me. I shouldn't do that.
But that's the thing. So, what you have to do in community service has to benefit you and the community as well.
I think it should do both, right? I think if you're just doing something because it benefits somebody else, there's a lot of choices for that, right? But it really should be something that you're into. How about that? It doesn't have to benefit you necessarily, but it has to make you more complete in some way.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Satisfaction.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for is satisfaction. Yeah.
Yes. If it's a choice for me between an academic standards committee and a research committee, I'm going to go research committee, right? Because that just is more in my passion and area of interest.
Yeah. Yes, Shivan.
I got a question, Andrea. So, which one of the qualities do you prefer most important? Knowledge or creativity? What proportion would you
good question.
Is it 60-40? Is it 50-50?
50-50.
Which is the sweet spot?
I think PhDs must be creative.
Okay.
And again, I'm an imposter syndrome person, but I felt like that's my weak suit. Why am I not as creative as some other people? But you can't do without the knowledge base. Creativity is the icing on top. Yeah.
Okay, so would you give it 60 in creativity and 40 in knowledge?
Ooh. Ooh. The knowledge is the cake, and the creativity is the icing on
Nice.
top. Is that about
Okay.
80-20? I don't know.
Okay.
Creativity to me, though, is more like something that's you intrinsically are creative or you're not. I don't know how you work on it. Like, I know how you work to build knowledge, you study, but I actually don't know how you work to build creativity.
I'll just take it as 80-20.
Yeah, I just wish I was more creative, like more like 60-40 or something, but yeah. I mean, I think, PhDs and chemists, we're trying to push the boundaries of knowledge, and so you can't just stick to knowledge because then you're going to be where you are. There's got to be some creative, like forward thinking about like what are we missing here? Yeah, that I think separates PhDs from
Everybody else.
I don't know, like that.
Yeah, and I think that creativity part is something that we struggle with because you come and you intend to have a project, for your dissertation. Then you have to really think out of the box, they say. Yeah, you have the knowledge, but you have to kind of decorate your knowledge with something on top.
Yeah, I can say that I think that reading widely, like diverse literature, helps with creativity. Like being an armchair scientist, like watching YouTube across scientific disciplines and stuff like that helps with creativity. I just said I don't know exactly how to be more creative, but I do think like if you broaden your scope a little bit, that tends, like if you study inorganic chemistry, but you read something on biology, you're like, well, that looks sort of nano, and that kind of inspires me, right? So I think maybe some breadth in your reading and exploration can help with the creativity.
Yeah.
This is a little opposite of knowledge. Knowledge is like a drill down, like read the textbook, right? So.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Any other personal question?
Good questions.
I'm just curious, in every project that you are doing, are you the type that you are doing micromanaging about for your students or not? Or do you think it's not effective?
I know some micromanagers. Do I micromanage? I probably do to some extent. I used to a lot when I was younger, like with paper writing especially. Like, oh, this is bad, let me just do it. I've learned that doesn't help anybody else learn, right? And so, like over the years, I think I've become gradually more. Let's make this a conversation, and let's come to the ideas we're going to work on together, right? Versus like micromanaging every step of what a student does, right? I think it's better to start like conversation, have mutual conversations as you go, than to micromanage. And actually, I think maybe what got me to stop doing that in like year 3 or 4 of my professorship was like being repetitively surprised at the quality of things students could do that I didn't even know was possible to do, right? So like in some sense, the less I told them what to do, the more creative they could be and the more they could show off their skills. So undergraduates really taught me that. Like I didn't think undergraduates could do much without scaffolding, but they can. Especially like a lot of younger students, like can program, they can, make graphics, they can do things I cannot do at my age. So I learned pretty quickly that like my skill set is my skill set. Others have other skills. Yeah. And it'd be bad if I micromanage that all the time. Yeah. Now I just try to, what do you want to call it? Constructive criticism, right? Like devil's advocate, right? Like, why do you think that will work? Or maybe we should try this instead.
I think that's good. I think, like you said, the lack of micromanagement enhances creativity in the students. We learn to think by ourselves. So out of, this has been the serious talk. I was just reading in your profile that you're a mom.
I am, yeah.
How has that been, maneuvering through academia as a mother,
I don't think I do it with the greatest of grace. Probably all parents feel like that, actually.
Yeah.
I have a sort of what I would consider an atypical family constitution. My husband's a stay-at-home father, and so that's made it fairly straightforward for me to do my career.
Mm-hmm.
That has made it socially difficult for the both of us in a number of ways, though, because that's not what society expects, right?
Yeah.
And he gets that all the time, like, why aren't you working? And I get this all the time, like, why aren't you parenting more? But, it works for us, and even when it's hard, it works for us. And, I think it's nice to have help as a parent. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think like he had to sacrifice?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I've had my spouse and I met in high school actually,
Mm-hmm.
and so he went to graduate school with me, went to postdoc, and moved. He's moved like 4 times with me. Absolutely. I mean, he had little control or choice. I mean, he had say in it, and he could have said no, but I think my path directed his, and I think that he
I
went
don't know
along
why
for that
that
ride willingly. So I consider myself lucky in that respect. But
Yeah.
and
Well, I'm
then
a mom.
being a
and
parent,
I
is
It's-
a full-time job, right? Yeah.
You have to be present in every. Yeah, I'm a mom, so I think that's why I asked you the question. Like, how is it for you being able to? But yeah, I think it's different for every couple.
How old are your kids? Is your kid?
5 and 6.
Okay, I think they get easier as they get older, but I think so. See,
Yeah.
my 12-year-old's kind of easy right now.
Yeah, once they grow up, they become better. So, what advice would you give to mothers who are in academia? They still want to be parents, and their spouses don't want to quit their jobs.
Oh, mine kind of likes what he does, I think, but what would I give as advice to moms? Make time for yourself, because if you are draining your own tank, you really aren't good to anybody else either, right? I wish I'd learned to carve out time for myself earlier on, because that's where I get sanity from now.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here with us. It's been awesome.
Thank you all. This has been fun.
It happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as, it's not as tight as the other one.
Yeah,
The
Dan
one
said
has a
interview yesterday, and I was like, oh no, I haven't done an interview in 15 years.
Well, this is
I don't know what to say.
this
Should
is
I
among
prepare you?
students. Yeah. This is among students, open conversations.
This was
At
cool.
tonight.
I think a good thing to do, learn more about how to be a person and a scientist at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well.
Thank you so much for joining our episode of Navigating Nano today for MRS JSNN. Kindly subscribe to our social media platforms on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and join and also listen to our podcasts on Spotify, and let's enjoy it together. Kindly subscribe. Thank you so much.